Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, an election system in Nebraska could be a role model for reforms in Arizona. Also tonight, a look at what it takes to get LEED certification for buildings and check out a local charity that provides medical care to a remote part of the world. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Nebraska elects its state legislature through a nonpartisan top two primary system. It's been that way since 1934, with the results allowing for progressive reforms in a state that's 71% Republican. A group called Open Primaries is out with a new report on Nebraska's election system. The report is titled The Myth of the Red State. Joining us now is Patrick McWhorter, the Open Primaries Arizona Campaign Director, and John Opdyke, the President of Open Primaries. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Ted.
Explain the title, The Myth of the Red State.
Well, you know, Nebraska is seen in national circles as being a pretty conservative place. 71% of the legislators in Nebraska are Republican. But in fact, the way those legislators make policy for the people of Arizona is very different than what you would expect maybe in other states that have similar Republican majorities.
And thus the myth, let's talk about what they do in Nebraska. How exactly does that election system work?
Well, as you referenced, in the 30s, the people of Nebraska enacted via ballot referendum a completely nonpartisan legislature. The members of the legislature are elected in nonpartisan open primaries. They don't even list their party affiliation on the ballot. They then go to a nonpartisan unicameral legislature where there are no party caucuses. Each member of the legislature is free to introduce legislation, to hold hearings, and so forth. And what we've seen after decades of doing this is that what happens in Nebraska is that interesting new coalitions can come together on the issues. Whether it's raising the minimum wage or dealing with immigration reform or raising the gas tax for infrastructure, Democrats, Republicans, and independents can come together because they're not constrained by a party structure.
Indeed, the report, the quote is, it's generally free of strong-arm partisan politics.
Yeah, it's really interesting when they organize themselves after each election. The leadership of the legislature, the committee chairs of the legislature, are all chosen based upon who would make the most sense as the leader, as the chair of that committee. In fact, a majority of the committee chairs are Democrats. And so it really is about doing the people's business, which we believe most people want out of their elected officials.
Is this something particular to Nebraska? I mean, this is a state without too many large cities. If it's a rural, obviously agricultural state, can that fit in an urban state or in a southwestern state?
Well, there are two other states that have a system of electing people in a nonpartisan primary election, and that is Washington and California. California was the most recent to create it, and they've had it for 2 election cycles, and it's having quite an impact on the way that lawmakers are behaving at the state capitol in California.
You mentioned a unicameral legislature. That's not like Arizona, and not like most places at all. How does that play into the dynamic if you've got one single body as opposed to 2 separate bodies that half the time are fighting with each other alone? I mean, again, when you look at Arizona, that looks like an awful difficult transition.
It is, and the unicameral is very unique in Nebraska, and it's something that I don't think is on the agenda and in too many states around the country, though I frankly think it should be. The bicameral legislature works to insulate the parties from the people because they know how to do an old switcheroo, where the lower house votes for something knowing that the upper house will veto it, and it allows for all kinds of shenanigans, which is one of the reasons they got rid of it in Nebraska back in the 30s.
And we're talking about partisanship here in a general sense. There are those who say, you know, partisanship isn't necessarily a bad thing, that, you know, partisanship can mean accountability in a variety of ways. Is that valid?
Well, Ted, parties have almost since the beginning of the nation had a role in our political system, and we believe they will continue to. But the question is, how much of a role? Should they be allowed to write the rules, to actually create the election system in such a way that the parties have an advantage over really what's best for the majority of the people, regardless of party. You know, our mantra at Open Primaries is nobody should be required to join a political party in order to exercise their right to vote. The fact is, with the primary election system that we have here in Arizona, that most states have, but they don't have in Nebraska for the legislature, it's the party that controls the system, and it takes away the rights of citizens as citizens.
So, but is it necessary to reduce the power of the parties to elect? I mean, these are groups of like-minded folks. They're going to go ahead and elect like-minded candidates.
Well, yes, and that's the appropriate role for a political party. If you talk to the chairman of the Democratic Party of Nebraska, he says we should absolutely keep the nonpartisan system here. It helps the Democratic Party because they have an easier time recruiting candidates who know that they're not going to run as sacrificial lambs. They actually have a chance of getting elected, and once elected, actually doing something in the legislature.
When you have the open top two primary, whatever you want to call it here, the critics will say it's likely that you're going to wind up in many districts, especially here in Arizona, with two Republicans running against each other, as opposed to giving a Democrat a chance, giving a small party, Green, Libertarian, take your pick, a chance. They're saying the small parties, they're shut out of something like this.
So Ted, we've been traveling all over the state, listening to the people of Arizona and finding out whether they are ready to invest in election reform. And here's what I can tell you. They are frustrated, actually they're angry, that their leaders, their elected officials are not responding to the issues that are important to them. We know that the #1 issue in Arizona by far is education. And we know how the legislature is addressing or not addressing education right now, responding to what the public wants. If you have an election system in the primary where every candidate has to face every voter, Republican, Democrat, Independent, you know, of all stripes, it's much more likely they're going to respond to what matters to those voters than the system we have now, where you have this very low turnout in a primary election, and it's only the people in your party that you're addressing. And that's why we have a legislature today that is not addressing the education issue. That doesn't happen in Nebraska. In Nebraska, they do the people's business.
There are those who say that if you have a disciplined party, you can still game the system. Shenanigans, as you said, that word, that can still happen even in the open primary. It basically, there are ways to strengthen parties even under this system.
Of course. I mean, no system is a cure-all. There is no magic bullet to bringing about a perfect political equilibrium. But if you saw this week, the Republican chairman of the Arizona GOP,
yes,
Robert Graham, issued a press release with all kinds of false and misleading allegations against Paul Johnson, the local leader of the open primaries movement. And you have to ask yourself, why is the chairman of the Republican Party so threatened? Why is he looking to discredit an emerging reform movement? And the reason is that they do not want Arizonans from a wide variety of backgrounds and politics coming together to address exactly what Patrick's talking about. The fact that the will of the people goes unaddressed in the state. And that's something, the GOP has a very bad record on democracy issues here in Arizona.
But you also have many Democrats who don't like this idea either. I mean, it's not just Republicans. Party faithful don't like something that reduces the power of the party.
Well, and party faithful being those who are very active in the party. But if you talk to people who are registered Democrats, registered Republicans, and are people that are every day trying to make a living and get their kids through school, and those folks, you know, at the end of the day, while they may be registered with a party, they want their elected officials to solve the problems that are facing their state. Those folks are with us. When we are in a room with those folks, they get why open primaries is an important idea, why people need to take their democracy back from the parties.
We had a vote on this, something similar to this, a few years ago, and it just got trounced at the polls. It sounded like those, at least who voted, didn't like the idea. What happened?
Well, in 2012, when this was on the ballot, there was not a lot of the work that we're doing now in terms of really bringing people along and educating them. It was, you know, many people I think thought this was very sensible, good government reform. This should be kind of easy to get passed, and didn't really get as much of the message out there. And so what people heard, and then the other thing, by the way, there was a late $2 million campaign against the proposition that created a lot of confusion in voters' minds. And you know what the voters did? They voted no because they didn't understand, which is a very rational thing. That's a good thing for voters to do. So, you know, I think what we're doing now in trying to listen to people, what their issues are, and see if election reform is the answer for them, I think that's what will make the difference.
And around the country, what are you seeing around the country as far as results? Obviously, we see what's happening in Nebraska, but that almost seems like an outlier in a variety of ways. What are you seeing in California, Washington? I know Louisiana kind of has its own little separate deal there.
Sure.
It's kind of an open election as opposed to an open primary. What are you seeing?
California used to be the most non-competitive state in the entire country. There were 3 incumbents defeated in the entire decade of 2000 to 2010. Fast forward to 2014, under the new nonpartisan system, it's the #1 competitive state in the country. It's been a complete reversal. There is a different legislative environment there. Independent voters, who are the fastest growing segment of voters, are now included. And the policy implications are very significant. They're doing all kinds of new, innovative things at the legislative level. And we're seeing people, activists, legislators, business leaders from the left, right, center, all over the country, who are looking at California, looking at Nebraska, looking at Washington, and saying, we need to bring this to our state.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us and helping us look at it as well. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Tonight's look at Arizona sustainability focuses on LEED certification. The Adelante Healthcare Facility in Peoria was recently granted LEED Gold Level certification for commercial interiors. This after meeting certain environmental standards. The project on the existing building was managed by Green Ideas Sustainability Consultants of Phoenix. Green Ideas President Charlie Popek is here to discuss what it takes to meet LEED certification standard. Welcome to Arizona Horizon.
Oh, thank you, Ted.
I just, these LEED we have a lot, we talk a lot about LEED certified this and LEED certified that. It sounds great. There's platinum, there's gold, there's silver. What are we talking about?
Well, there's 4 levels of LEED certification, and LEED is a point-based system. So the bottom level, certified level, you get more points. You can get to silver, then gold, then platinum. So a lot of people think you have to earn all these points and do all these crazy green things, but really you only pick the points that make environmental sense and financial sense for your project.
Now, the Adelante Healthcare Facility, I think we have a shot of this from the exterior and a couple of shots from the interior as well, but what is this place all about?
Well, Adelante Healthcare is a low-cost healthcare provider, and they've made a commitment to sustainability. And LEED in green building really makes sense for healthcare projects, you know, healthy people in healthy buildings, you know. So Adelante really focused on the interiors of this building. So they're using low-emitting carpeting, paints, glues, adhesives, so they're eliminating the source of contaminants and things that make people sick, and then they're bringing more fresh air ventilation through the building, providing views to the outdoors in order to make their patients recover
Sounds
quicker.
like it ought to be required. Forget the LEED, to make it required, huh?
You would think so.
Yeah. I know that you tried to preserve the building's resources as well. Talk to us about that.
This particular project was a renovation in a little existing strip mall. So what LEED for Commercial Interiors is, because there's different LEED programs out there, LEED for Commercial Interiors is a tenant improvement LEED. So no matter what your building looks like, if it's an existing shell, you could just go in and do the tenant improvement like Adelante did, and that building can now be LEED CI, Commercial Interior Certified.
Can you do any building, get any building? Because I would imagine there have to be some projects where you just look at it and go, let's blade this and start all over again.
It's true, and most of our projects are new construction. But as I said, there are different LEEDs. For instance, there's LEED for existing buildings, not the greatest name. It should be really called LEED for facility management. And this is what companies like General Dynamics and Intel have done, because that's really where you get the most bang for your buck in green building. It's not when you build the first building and then you think you're green forever, right? It's in the operation and maintenance of your facility for the next 10, 20, 50 years.
Yes.
That's where you save the money.
Yeah, when you're green, and you got to stay green. You can't
Exactly.
be fading off into another color.
Exactly.
The Garmin Corporate Center campus, I think you did that one as well. I think we have a shot of that one as
Yes.
well. What are we looking at here?
That building was also gold level certified and nearly net zero energy. I believe they're saving about 98% on their energy costs because they installed solar on the project.
New building.
Brand new building, yes sir.
And now Intel has an Ocotillo campus building that I think you were involved with as well. Tell us about this building.
The Intel project was a LEED for existing buildings, which is the facility management. So they implemented that sustainable facility management program for the whole campus. And so it uses all the same fundamentals of green building. You're treating your site with respect, keeping your stormwater on your site, you're saving energy, saving water, and creating environments that are healthy for people. So that Intel project ended up getting a LEED Gold also, and it's the largest LEED EB certified facility in the world and the most complicated building to ever achieve that certification.
Isn't that interesting? Now, I would think the Phoenix Convention Center, which is another building that you were involved, that would strike me as being quite the complex project as well.
Well, it is, but you know, when you're thinking about a chip manufacturer
Yeah.
versus a convention
Yes.
center, there's
Yes.
a lot of complicated machinery in that Intel project, and the Phoenix Convention Center, just the west building was
gotcha.
LEED certified, not the remainder of the facility.
Yeah, that beautiful building we're looking at right now. It's just a gorgeous facility.
It
down
is
there,
really high end.
So when you're, I mean, you talked about low emitting materials, air quality, obviously a factor. Janitorial program. I would imagine you got to watch what you're cleaning, correct?
Huge, huge. It's the same with paints and glues and adhesives. They off-gas volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, and they continue to off-gas those VOCs for years and years. But with a green cleaning program, it's the same thing. They say the most harmful place in your home is under your kitchen sink, because that's typically where people keep their cleaning fluids, right? So you've got to clean a building anyway, right? So why not use the right kind of chemicals to clean your building instead of the wrong kind that can make people sick? And that's another thing Adelante did.
And I know that Adelante was also big with the low flow plumbing fixtures and the low flow plumbing fittings, those sorts of
Yes,
things. How big a deal is that?
It's a big deal, especially in Arizona. And LEED continues to evolve. Like in prior versions of LEED, there was no minimum set for water efficiency. But in the current version of LEED, you need to save at least 30% below a baseline on your energy. The more water you, on your water. The more water you save, the more points you earn, the higher level of LEED certification you achieve.
You mentioned the rating scale kind of changing. Could it change again?
It has changed. We're currently on version 3, but version 4 of LEED was just introduced last year. So if you were doing a new building, say today, you have a choice of choosing version 3 or version 4. So they give you a little bit of a leeway there before they implement the more stringent requirements, because it keeps getting tougher and tougher and tougher.
How tough is it to convince some of these business owners, these corporations, that making these kinds of changes, retrofitting or starting new, makes good business sense?
It can be very difficult because we are a first cost mentality society. We want to know what's it going to cost us to build that building or to buy that car, right? We don't often look at life cycle costs, and that's why, as I said earlier with the LEED for existing buildings, it not only looks at your first cost, but it looks at the cost throughout time, right? So it's not just what you're spending, It's what are you getting for what you're spending? And a lot of times it doesn't have to cost any more even up front, but the real savings is over time.
And are people getting that, or do they understand that?
Unfortunately, it's an uphill battle. I do like the education part of green building, because when you see the light bulbs go off over people's heads when they start to get it, it really makes sense. But if you don't understand what we're trying to do, it's just an additional first cost that people don't understand.
I was going to say, the reaction after the construction is done, uniformly positive? Every once in a while someone has a little question or a problem, or what kind of reaction you get?
From the businesses?
Yes.
Well, once they do it once or twice and they see their bills coming in that can be half or even less of what they could have been, then they start to get it. Just like Adelante. This is the second project we've done for them. We did 2 for Intel, 2 for General Dynamics, and all these companies plan to do more.
All right. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Me.
Tonight's edition of Arizona Giving and Leading takes a look at a local group that provides medical care to a very remote area. Samaritan Aviation saves lives by offering emergency medical flights to those in need. Producer Allison Cummings and photographer Langston Fields have more.
Imagine needing medical attention and living 3 to 5 days away from the nearest hospital. That is a challenge that many people living in Papua New Guinea face. Based in Mesa, Samaritan Aviation provides medical evacuation flights to those in need.
You know, it's amazing. You talk about life and death in Papua New Guinea. It's kind of in your face all the time. You know, there isn't a person in town that I don't know that is not dealing. It doesn't seem like it's not dealing with a death almost on a weekly basis.
According to Palm, the life expectancy in Papua New Guinea is 20 years lower than in the United States.
98% of the people there have malaria on the river, so we're working with malaria patients, trauma patients from tribal wars, other things that happen as well. So we basically operate the only float plane in Papua New Guinea. We're on call 7 days a week. And so we do emergency medical evacuations. We also do medicine deliveries to 37 different aid posts along the Sepik River, and also help with disaster relief.
The funding to treat these patients is split in half between the government of Papua New Guinea and America.
You know, the hardest part, I think, for me is, you know, funding is always a challenge. The easy part for me is to actually do the work over there. The hardest part is to tell the story well, I think, and to get other people excited. People that hear the story always get excited about it.
In fact, one of the most memorable stories comes from a cholera outbreak.
One epidemic took place before we got there, a cholera outbreak. 3,000 people died. Once we got there, the same kind of epidemic began, but we were able to fly medicine in, and there was only 3 or 4 people that died, and we were able to save a lot of lives just because we were there.
For Palm, it's rewarding to see the families he's helped.
The very first emergency flight we ever did was Good Friday 2010. And you know, I got a call and we rushed out. The weather was really bad, and we pick up this unconscious mother, bring her in. She goes straight into surgery. She lives, her baby lives, and they named the baby after me. They named him Baby Mark. And you know, March of this last year, Baby Mark turned 5 years old.
Mark and his family spend most of their time in Papua New Guinea. They return to Arizona for a few months every couple of years.
Yeah, you know, I was looking at pictures last week from when we moved over in 2010. My youngest was 4 years old, He's 9 now, and he reminded me the other day that he's lived in Papua New Guinea longer than he's lived in America.
Mark always says, "What is a life worth?" And that very question is what guides him on his journey.
To follow Samaritan Aviation's journeys, you can check out their website at samaviation.com.
From you. Submit your questions, comments, and concerns via email at arizonahorizon@asu.edu.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
G. Piper Charitable Trust, committed to changing lives and strengthening community through investments in nonprofits and strategic initiatives. More information at pipertrust.org.